Dead Island Riptide, an overlooked clunky gym and at its peak was quite a popular game of its time, but it was quickly forgotten about as more popular games were released. Nowadays, all these kids are either playing Minecraft or Fortnite. Back in my day, we played real games such as Garfield Carts. But the real game for gamers is none other than Dead Island. No, not you, Dead Island Riptide. Because in this case, the sequel is superior, simply because of the fruit consumption sound effect. But besides that, let me enlighten you on why Dead Island Riptide has more depth than you originally thought, with elements such as story, gameplay, and atmosphere. I'll be analyzing and discussing each one of these elements in depth, and explaining why they have more depth than you thought. First, we'll start with Dead Island Riptide's story is pretty much meh. It can be summarized as little as escape from first island. Now new island with bad men who do bad thing. Stop bad man so he do no more bad thing. The whole storyline is pretty generic with a slightly predictable twist at the end. Spoiler alert! Nice lady at start of game is not nice anymore and will try to stinky leg on you on the final level. What a twist. This is equally as shocking when the 21 kid said 9 plus 10 is 21.
You stupid.
They're not.
What's 9 plus 10?
It ain't no Dark Souls, but we'll make do for now until Dead Island 2 comes out. Also, why does the main villain look like Frank West from Dead Rising? I won't be going too in depth in the Riptide story, but I will be covering the main quests. The main storyline quests range from good to just okay. Some of the good ones are the base defense ones, where you have to defend your base from a horde while protecting an objective, while also making sure no survivors die in the process. These type of quests are one of the reasons why it outperforms the first Dead Island. It adds a harder challenge to the gameplay, which provides players to be able to defend their base and survivors while dealing with a large group of enemies that include different enemy types to force players to use different strategies to deal with each enemy type. There is one base defense quest per area, which acts as a final quest for that area. The only problem with these quests are that the survivors tend to get grabbed by enemies often, and you have to save them quite frequently. And on top of that, survivors' damage is equivalent to hitting a bear with a plastic bat. The rest of the main quests have a variety of objectives that range from good to a bit annoying. The annoying ones being the ones that you have to bring an object back to your base, which you have to carry back, which will replace your weapon and significantly slow you down. These are even more annoying when you have to carry and transport multiple items back by yourself. Thankfully there isn't too many of these quests, so you won't go into gamer rage. The rest of the main quests are fetch or search quests, but are more entertaining than the usual fetch quests, since it has you exploring different areas within a level. Some are one-time areas and cannot be revisited after leaving. These type of quests help it feel more like a survival horror game, while also making sure you are well equipped to enter an area while searching for an objective item. Admittedly, most excitement comes from completing the main quest, but side quests can be quite as interesting as well. Side quests in Riptide are either boring or bizarre, nothing in between. Sometimes a survivor will quest a common item which you can turn indefinitely in for cash and XP.
Canned food is all we have here. Canned food is all. Canned food is. Canned food is all. Canned food is. Canned food. Canned food is all. Canned food is. Canned food is all we have here.
Others can be more interesting, like retrieving some white powder.
Cocaína.
Side quests are excellent ways for earning cash and XP, with some quests even rewarding mods to use to make your weapon more powerful. Although side quests are completely optional, they assist with taking a break from the main story, and you might even explore an area you've never seen before. Completing them can give you an advantage by having a higher level character alongside having a more powerful weapon. Side quests aren't the most impactful, but they keep the game more free with choice, while providing more entertainment along the way. Gameplay is the main subject I wanted to focus on when making this video, because past game reviews often label it as shallow and repetitive. I'd have to agree with them if you played the whole game in the same playstyle of mashing the attack button with no real thought or strategy. If you want to play the game like a caveman, that's totally fine, but blaming the game for not teaching you something new is totally invalid. Riptide has countless tips in its loading menu, and if you take the time to read enemy profiles, you would know the weakness of certain types of enemies, instead of running up to that enemy and dying instantly because you didn't know it exploded when you got near it. Remember kids, reading is power. Being informed about enemies and knowing your surroundings in Riptide will save you quite a few deaths, and with less deaths, you have more money to spend on those sweet weapon upgrades. Now moving on to the core of Dead Island Riptide's gameplay. Combat is used through the whole game and is vital for completing quests and progressing through the game. There are 4 main weapon categories within Riptide: bladed, blunt, hand-to-hand, and firearms. Each melee type offers little differences in range and swing speed, but firearms are the best in both range and damage. Each playable character has their own weapon specialties: Sam B, blunt weapon expert; Zian, bladed weapons expert; John, hand-to-hand weapons expert; Karuna, firearms weapon expert; and Logan, throwing weapons expert. All characters are pretty evenly balanced, and it's up to personal preference which skill you want to focus on, but ultimately it doesn't matter too much because you can level up all these skills on each character. But melee skills will be the most important, especially in early game levels which lack guns and ammo. Mindless slashing can get you through the game, but at the sacrifice of more deaths and less cash to spend. The most vital tool in your close range combat is the kick. The kick pushes back charging enemies, staggering them long enough for you to get a good hit in. Enough kicks can even cause some enemies to fall to the floor, making them easy targets as they slowly try to get back on their feet. The kick is one of the best weapons in your arsenal, and it can create space when enemies get too close and act as a good way to run through areas without getting grabbed. Another overlooked combat method in Riptide is environmental traps, the most common being explosive items that can be triggered with either a firearm or throwing weapon. Riptide teaches you this concept at the very beginning of the game, when you blow up the bridge with red barrels. You know what else is red? Riptide's overall combat system has more depth than one might perceive. It's a matter of choosing to look into the information given to you, information that will enhance your combat effectiveness and improve your overall strategic ability. Make quick decisions to quickly put down a group of enemies without rushing in and dying, like a stinky poo-poo head. Corresponding along combat, the types of enemies you'll encounter throughout Riptide. The enemy types alone in Riptide are my favorite aspect of the game. Their individual design and attacks make for a mixed variety of strategy the player has to use to deal with each enemy type. I want to discuss each individual enemy type you'll encounter and rate their true threat level, because Riptide underestimates some threat levels and overestimates others. I will not be mentioning one-time enemies, since they are very similar and their threat levels are pretty much equal. I'll start with the weakest and work my way up to the strongest enemies. First off is the Walker. This is the most common enemy in the game and is very easy to kill. It can be knocked down very easy and any weapon can dispatch them quickly. There are slight variants of the Walker, but they all are almost exactly the same. Those variants being the Toxic Walker, Burning Walker, and the most unique of them, Mutated Scientist. All moving at a slow speed, Walkers are only ever dangerous in large groups, but individually their threat level is only 1. The next enemy is only slightly stronger than the Walker, that being the Suicider. They are slightly stronger due to the fact that they can instantly kill you if you get too close. They are very slow and have low health. Players can easily dispatch them using a ranged weapon or throwing a weapon at them to trigger them to explode. They only are ever a threat when in close quarters, but they are very easy to avoid when out in the open. Their threat level is only 1 since they are so easy to avoid. The next enemy is only ever a semi-threat early game because of its decent damage and health. Floaters, aka the average neckbeard, are mostly found in early game levels and are always close to water. They have a melee attack and a range attack, where he can spit gamer juice on players with decent range. Floaters can easily be dealt with if a player stays to its back. They have a very slow turning speed, and is usually doing a range attack that lasts quite a long time, giving you a chance to strike it from behind. Floater's health and its range attacks give it a threat level of 2. This next one has one of the best designs, yet is quite underwhelming. Butcher is a very fast enemy that uses its bones as weapons. They cannot be knocked down, and they can be rarely crippled. Even with these effects, their attacks can be easily dodged, and they can be stunned with multiple kicks. Their biggest weakness comes from ranged weapons, which they can be taken out before they even get close, therefore giving them a threat level of 2. This next enemy can either be a threat level of 1 or 2, the Grenader. Based on the way you approach it, you can either rush in and dish out the damage, or simply shoot the tank on the back, instantly killing it. This is found out only if, guess what, you read the bio after discovering it. Grenaders are similar to thugs, but have a ranged attack as well, where it rips off the fruit gushers off its body and throws it at you. Since it could be killed instantly, I have to give it a threat level of 2. Moving on to one of the first mini-bosses from the first game, the Thug. Thugs hit very hard and have a large amount of health, but they move very slow and have poor range. Using bladed weapons to cut off its arms leaves it very open for attacks, but it does take quite a few swings to get to that point. Patience and timing are the best strat when dealing with one, kinda like Dark Souls. But because of that, I give it a threat level of 3. Next is the most annoying and terrifying enemy in Riptide, the Infected. Motherfuckers dead sprint after you for eternity and hit like a truck. You haven't experienced fear unless you've seen a group of infected sprinting towards you. You go into fight or flight, and it's usually flight. Whenever you hear a scream, you instantly turn around and try to locate it, because the last thing you want is them to catch up to you. Best method to deal with them is to use the kick attack or range weapons, and if there's a group of them, you best be finding a high place to hide on. Also, did I mention there are variants of the infected, such as toxic infected, burning infected, and worst of all, frenzy infected? They are twice the size of normal infected and do twice the amount of damage. You get to fight hordes of these late game base defense quests, and they love killing your survivors fast. Therefore, I must give them a threat level of 3, but I give the frenzy version a threat level of 4. Bastards. Now let's talk about every child in an online lobby. Screamers. They are fast and attack with swiftness, and when they scream it blurs your vision and has a chance to knock you on your feet. On top of that, when they scream it summons nearby enemies to come aid them in getting that victory royale. You will have to use a ranged weapon before it sees you, or else you won't have time, because it will be on top of you, and then you'll have no choice to use melee. If not careful, you can get surrounded very easily and die. Taking them out as soon as possible is your best chance before all of its minions group up. Because of its speed and stagger ability, it's one of the more dangerous enemies in Riptide, making its threat level 4. The next enemy kinda looks like the Thing, the orange Dorito one. The wrestler has the largest health pool of all enemies, can perform an AoE attack that knocks you to the ground. They also are super resistant to damage, so the best way to deal with one is either using ranged weapons or fire. They may look like Meatloaf, but sure enough, their threat level is 4. Now, for the most dangerous enemy of all Riptide, the Ram Ranch. Oh, you like trucks? Well, the Ram hits like one. Alongside his massive health bar, body shots do minimal damage, making its head its only weak spot. And headshots are difficult due to the fact it won't stop ramming you. Melee damage is good against them, but you will be kicked on your back if you get close enough. The only way to put this beast down effectively is hope and a shotgun, giving the Ram a threat level of 5. So you better just log out the moment you see him in the game. The overall atmosphere in a game has the job of setting the mood and tone in that game. It's a way to make players feel a certain way just by the in-game surroundings and lighting. A good game can portray multiple moods consistently throughout a game. Riptide has a range of moods throughout its levels and consistently transitions to one mood by simply moving to another area of the game. Riptide's original graphics were kind of like a Samsung phone when they first came out, but luckily 3 years later after its initial release, both games' graphics were improved and re-released as the Definitive Editions. In the Definitive Edition, the graphics were better than I thought they would be. All my gameplay footage was captured in this version on the PC, and I have to say that the graphics do hold up in 2020. It's not the most intense realistic graphics, but you will see stuff in the game and be like, wow, that's pretty poggers, bro. If anything still feels wonky, it's the cutscenes, because they feel like a 2013 game's cutscene, with a strange NPC movement and the NPC's lifeless eyes that seem to stare right through you, stealing your soul from your body. Also, they like to use a lot of the same outfits with NPCs and zombies, so sometimes you'll fight 3 of the same zombies wearing the exact same outfit and go, guess they were triplets. But that didn't bother me much, and it didn't take me out of the game. Overall, the graphics do hold up to other modern games surprisingly, and they do a good job at immersing you in the tropical nightmare. Riptide's levels display a wide variety of tones depending on the location in-game. For the majority of the beginning of the game, the tropical island scenery portrays a dream vacation spot, yet accompanied with blood, corpses, and of course, the undead, scattered throughout this tropical hell. The game sometimes makes it seem like you're not even playing a horror game, but quickly reminds you when a group of undead starts stumbling towards you. Riptide mainly takes place outside, but as you progress through the story, you enter more and more buildings as you progress. Interiors in Riptides are polar opposites of its outside counterpart. Instead of being wide open and bright, it's instead dark and cramped and actually feels like a horror game. These transitions in tone act almost like a reality check every time you enter a building to remind you, this is not paradise, but a nightmare come to life. My goal of this video was to analyze the overlooked aspects of this 7-year-old game, and to kind of remind people of its existence, because I don't hear much talk about either games anymore, and I wanted to put it back on everybody's radar. I personally get nostalgia when I play Riptide, because I remember I played it the day it came out, and that day happened to be my birthday. But I always have enjoyed the game, and when I recently discovered it again, I had to share my experience with others. It may be a sometimes clunky game, but I think it has more to offer than most people initially had thought. I do recommend it for anybody looking for a more unique spin on the zombie game, and it has replay value by playing through the game again as a different character and build. Solid 4 out of 5 Baja Blast. If you enjoyed the video, give it a like. If you want to see more, consider subscribing to the channel. See you later, you creamy cowboys.